but here there is not. Eccoci, here we are. Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and good evening for India, because it is 7 p.m. Thank you for joining us on our River to River Chai Time, named Connecting Lifestyles. So I'm here with two friends. One is a friend since 20 years, and another one is a recent friend, but here we are all connected. So from far away, Meenakshi Shedde. Hi, Meenakshi.
Namaste. Hi.
From Mumbai, Meenakshi is a film curator and journalist. And from Italy, Rita Cenni. Hi, Rita. Ciao.
Hi to you all.
Hi.
Rita is a journalist, and she's a correspondent for the news agency ANSA in India. At the moment, Rita is in Italy because of the world and how we are in this situation now. So our River to River Chai Time of today, I have my chai without any milk, but I have it and I'm drinking it. I hope everyone is doing the same. So actually the weather in Italy now is gloomy, rainy, a bit, so it's chai makes you really cozy and pleasant to have a nice chat. So I was speaking with Meenakshi and Rita a few minutes ago in the backstage, and we were saying that this technology is really helping us all for work and for pleasant things. And we are all able to connect with friends or people from all over the world much more, in different ways than before. And so the chat of today also concerns exactly this. So connecting lifestyles and how our lifestyles are now compared to before and in different parts of the world. So both Meenakshi and Rita are storytellers because they are journalists. So they tell stories in some ways. So I would like to ask Meenakshi, what kind of stories is she telling nowadays, in these days? So now you have to know that India now is still quite locked down, more than Italy. But if I'm not mistaken, from today, there are a few little things that have begun opening, I think, a little bit more, but they are still quite locked down. So what kind of stories Meenakshi is telling, and what different than before, and what are her personal stories? What can she tell us about what happens in her daily life in Mumbai in these days, in these weeks?
So thank you, first of all, Selvaggia, for inviting me on this show. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And first of all, let me wish you for your 20th anniversary of the wonderful River to River Festival this year.
Thank you.
So of course, Corona, I think, lockdown has affected everyone worldwide. And what I was involved with, I think, so basically I'm freelance. So I work out of my laptop, I work out of home. So I don't have an office to go to anyway. So it's not fundamentally very different because anyway, I'm operating out of home. Of course, I can't roam around and hang out and, do things like that. But I have to say, this kind of enforced being in one room or one tiny house. I have quite a modest house in Bombay. It has forced my mind to be very still and pay attention to detail. Now, this is something that I didn't notice before. For example, I have a very tiny balcony. I think Selvaggia might remember we've had chai on my
balcony. We had a lot of chais on that balcony.
Yes, it's my palace. And so I have a lot of flower pots with flowers and plants and creepers there. And I remember noticing, and this I've never thought of it like that before. So there's usually some little flowers, at least some months of the year when there's sun. And there is, actually, I didn't know the names of the flowers. I said, "Bhaiya, ye safed phool de do," which means, "Hey man, give me this white flower." I didn't know what the name was. I just got it at a nursery near my house, and I said, "Ye lal wala de do, give me that red one." Very generic. So much later, when I googled the photo, because it looked very exotic, it turned out to be some clerodendron, some Latin American flower, and something has come from Africa and. I had no idea because I just bought them in a very sidey roadside shop, okay? So now those flowers, these clerodendrons, would normally last maybe a week.
Yeah.
And then they become pink and then they fade out, okay? Now I'm suddenly noticing, so there are different flower pots, right? So this might be completely my crazy imagination, but I felt it's holding its breath because I thought of it as the responsibility of flowers during Corona. So it refused to fade until the next flower was ready to bloom, as if it was showing up. So So it's kind of passing on the baton. And it's literally lasted almost 3 weeks. It has never lasted so long. And when I noticed, I kind of felt its a responsibility to cheer me up. So it's waiting till the next flower blooms. And
so nice.
What a sweet thing, I thought. Really charming.
Maybe these things, we notice now because we are in this situation. Maybe at another time we wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
And what about, what kind of, so you're a freelance, you write a lot of stories, and mostly, let's say I met you when you were working for a big Indian newspaper for cinema, huh? And I used to come to your office downtown in Mumbai. I still remember in Fort, and we used to have chai also there on your desk. And so what are the kind of stories that you are, let's say that you are writing, or that people are, because nowadays we share also a lot of stuff on the net, so maybe you write an article, since you're a freelance, you write also for online papers, so maybe you share them. So what are the stories that people like the most nowadays?
So I actually have a column in Midday. So my writing is not hugely active because my film programming and film work has somehow been much more taken over my life, and I'm very happy about it. And also recently I was invited on the selection team of a very important film fund in North America. It's associated with one of the top festivals there, to choose projects which will get funding. So for me, that was very humbling and a completely different thing from my usual work. And it's an ability to help filmmakers directly, other than now recommending at festivals and having films selected, which is at the tail end. This is moving ahead and supporting them at the beginning. So that's thrilling. But in terms of my column, I actually wrote something that got a lot of response, was when I wrote about, so of course you've seen these horrible videos of India, of very, very poor people who the government did nothing for them to transport these millions and millions of people home, and they all started walking along the highway with small babies and a basket of their belongings on dying on the road, dying of hunger, dying of thirst, and just collapsing because their home is 1,000 kilometers away, and they just started walking because all the buses and trains were all stopped overnight, right? So I think a lot of Indians were really frustrated. What can we do about them? We are just crying to see these pictures and thinking we're sitting nicely in our middle class homes, feeling bad, posting something on Facebook, maybe donating online, but not doing beyond that. I'm very delighted to get a text from a very close friend, Falguni Desai, who told me that she was volunteering with an NGO that is making 10,000 rotis needed today.
Now, does everyone know what a roti is?
It's a flat bread. You had a word for it. What did you call it, Selvaggia?
No, we said a kind of piadina, but it's not exactly. It's a flat bread.
So it's round and it's flat, and you eat it with anything. It's like basic. It's equivalent of a bread. So they said, we want 10,000 rotis today. I said, oh my God. So I had just woken up and I saw, this was on a weekend. So I saw it at 12 and I had to deliver these rotis by 3. So in effect, I had like 2 hours to do it. So I have not cooked in 20 years. You know, Indians are spoiled princesses, right? Principessa and whatever. We don't do any housework, most of us. I mean, some of us are rather, let me recorrect it. Some of us are lucky enough not to have to do it. So I have angel number 1 who cooks and angel number 2 who cleans up everything. And then I wake up like a princess and everything's ready and I can do my professional work. I mean, we are really so spoiled by these wonderful people who allow us to do our work with such ease, which most people don't have in the West, and everyone's doing everything themselves. So this roti thing, so I was panicking because I have not made a roti in 20 years. I haven't touched a belan, which is this thing to roll it, right? And then my friend sent me on WhatsApp, okay, I'm making 150 and here are 50 already packed in foil. I said, oh my God, I better make something.
150 rotis. Oh, Mama
Roti in one day, just herself, just personally, okay?
Brava.
So I said, okay, I'm not competing, I'll make 25. If I make 25, that'll be a great thing. So I texted all my immediate neighbors. I said, hey, I'm really sorry, short notice. We have 2 hours. Please make 10 rotis each and we'll see what we come up with. They were so darling. I made 25 rotis, Selvaggia. I need a gold medal. I had no idea. I'm shocked. And then between us, we made 85 rotis in 2 hours. Just my neighbors, which is quite a lot. And then the next week, I said, we have to keep doing this. We made 500 something, and now it is almost 700. This week, it was 700 rotis, just by word of mouth saying, can you make 10 rotis? Then I deliver to a place, and then from there it goes to all the railway stations where the migrants are going, the slums. And it's just, it feels so nice that you can do something about Corona and help others. That is a very positive feeling.
That's very important. I see that Ravi is saying, someone who is following us is saying, many have become master chef in COVID times. Absolutely. Yes. See here the comment. Yes, it's true. It's true. And I mean that it is also true that we have learned, I mean, in these times to do things that we would have never done before. Maybe we wouldn't have thought about, and also the fact of not wasting. So so the fact, maybe, I mean, I do this, that I'll use this that I'm maybe to do something else, because I will not throw it away. And absolutely. So this is, if there is something good, I mean, we have learned also to be very careful on what we use and not to waste, absolutely not waste anything, and be good about this. So again, Ram is saying, there shall be now an online, yes, exactly. Everyone has been cooking, but of course, Meenakshi's store is for a very good cause. Actually, here, I must say that in the surroundings of where I live here in Florence, there have been people have been putting baskets in little corners of the roads, and in the basket anyone can put some food. Of course, not a freshly made roti here. Maybe it's different. Maybe we put a packet of pasta or flour or sugar, and who needs it will just take it from the basket. Rita has disappeared from the screen, so I'm sure she will be back. So
you've been making pizza, right?
I was.
Again.
Very impressive.
And how is your neighborhood? I mean, we have been. For example, I did. Now we're speaking. We love food. I mean, although it's collecting, we're speaking again about food. But I have been connecting with my neighbor in France. So I was doing a pizza. I was giving her some pizza. She was doing something else. She gave me some. So it's all also a barter thing, no? We have learned in this moments to do in different ways. So how is your neighborhood in your building, Meenakshi?
Simply pampering me.
More are you doing?
Yeah, first of all, I think they're very conscious that I'm alone, and they're well aware that I can't cook. So they're so sweet. Every weekend they pamper me. I get, last weekend, my neighbor Viju gave me this very fancy, she made a dosa with pav bhaji inside. Oh my. And before that, a Chinese Manchurian thing. And my other neighbor Tanuja across the street sends me a Konkani cooking, which is my community cooking with lots of coconut curry, and it's so delicious. So I am being really pampered, which much more than I was otherwise. So I'm very grateful to them.
Lovely. So Rita, how is life? Rita is, as I was saying before, usually she lives in New Delhi. She came back for all this, so she is in Bologna at the moment. But Rita usually, is as I was saying, works for the news agency ANSA, and she is the Italian correspondent for India. So how is it to see the country you write about when you're there from outside, and what are you reading, what are you writing, how is your life in these days? And please tell us.
You mean here in Italy during this period, or when I am in Delhi?
No, now, of course, now. So how is the perception of India from here? I mean, from outside.
Yeah, I want to explain you this. As you told, I have been living in Delhi from summer 2018, and then when I perceived the lockdown was coming all over India. In Italy, we had lockdown. I decided anyway to come back to Italy, because I didn't want to spend. I didn't know how long alone at home in Delhi without nothing at all to do outside. So I just jumped on one of the last flights I could get, and I went back here to Bologna. I am still following Indian life. Everything is what what's happening in India. And frankly speaking, is not so easy as it is when I am in India. When I am in India, I have newspapers. Of course, I am all day long on the net for news, but I have physical contacts. I have people I met. I can make interview on my phone and on WhatsApp. It's totally different.
Yes.
This is the first point. The second point is observing and writing. Observing India from here and writing about India was much more difficult because my first impression is that COVID-19, coronavirus, was the only thing. There was nothing else. It was really difficult for me to find different stories than stories connected to COVID.
Oh yes,
and
of course.
Yeah. And it was horrible because, you know, we were here. I arrived in Italy and I had to spend my 2 weeks of quarantine isolated at home as I was coming back from a foreign country. It was paradoxical because, you know, in that moment when I arrived here in Bologna, it was mid-March, around 19th of March. Here in Italy, we had much more cases than India had. But quarantine was requested. So I spent 14 days isolated at home with my husband, who provided everything was needed at home, but I could not go out for even 1 minute. And talking about India, what I experienced was that in a way, not surprisingly, the way India approached the corona crisis was exactly the same we used in Italy. And what I could write about was very similar. I mean, the concern of the spreading of the virus, all the skills in order to stop it or in order to make it less dangerous. The so-called social distancing, which I don't like because I would much more prefer a different saying. I mean, physical distance, not social. It's not a matter of social, but keeping a distance from the other person, the other people around you. So what I was able to write about was a little bit frustrating for me because I felt it was, in a way, second-hand news. I was not here. I could not have a direct contact. So after the first weeks, I started contacting all my relations in India through WhatsApp and using all kind of methods like this platform or mainly Zoom for creating a different way of being together and exchanging news story, which could be much more real than what I was understanding from as far as Italy. But I think I could follow the mainstream, which was exactly concerning this huge problem of migrant laborers. We were abruptly without any kind of work, without any income, and they could not keep on living in the megalopolis like Mumbai or like Delhi, and they tried to escape to this terrible situation. They started walking. There were no more trains, no more buses. All the internal traffic was stopped. And after the first attempt, many states under a national government, central government decision, stopped them and put them in rescue camps, something like this, but it was even more horrible. So I tried to have contacts with some of them, with the handicap of the language. I don't speak Hindi, not yet. I'm just starting.
You're doing lessons. You're taking Hindi lessons.
And so, as you understand, very, very few of these people, of this huge mass of laborers, that they don't speak English. So I needed translation, but in a way I managed. So this was what I was able to do and what I am still doing day by day. So.
Okay, thank you, Rita. When are you planning to go back to India?
Oh, I would like to answer you as soon as possible, but I cannot understand when this soon will become real, because at the moment India is still keeping its international borders closed. There are no international commercial or private flights allowed to land on India. And they say maybe around the beginning of July. We'll see. Maybe in a shorter time they will decide something different. So as soon as I can, I will come back to Delhi. But at the moment,
Rita, there is a question for you, as we have highlighted. Rita, as a neutral and external perspective, how do you see the state and quality of journalism in India? Maybe we can ask also Meenakshi, who is a journalist of India. I don't know. Let's see. Government broadcaster like Doordarshan is usually pro-government, and private channels are pro-commercial, news that sell well, of course. How do you get access to quality and impartial journalism?
Thank you for the question, which is a really sensitive question in a way. I would say I want to judge Indian journalists as so bad or not impartial. It's very difficult to be impartial everywhere in the world.
Yes.
For many, many reasons. I have been a professional journalist for such a long time. What I can see is that I think India has thousands of very brave reporters, and most of them you can follow on websites. I will sit, maybe I will quote the print, scroll, the monthly magazine Caravan, and many, sorry for the many others I don't remember in this moment. I can try to look to my
Scroll and Wire as well has been doing a lot of
Wire
also. Of course, Wire, and then the Quint, First Post, so and many others, not so famous, but I think, and there are many NGO associations. So I think there is a citizen journalist, which is really rich.
Exactly.
So and what I have to explain is, as I cannot read Hindi, I can only read the English newspapers, the English weekly magazine, which is not enough, considering that the amount of official languages spoken in the country, almost 20, and the amount of different newspapers. What I can say is that I know, and I'm sure Meenakshi can confirm, there is a big new problem, because many publishers are cutting the number of journalists. They are not paid as they were before. Some of the publishing companies announce different programs, and they say it is a lack of advertising, and the income of the print copies has been so going down, because most of the print copies could not be delivered to at home.
Course. Yeah, of course.
So I think this is something similar is happening in Italy as well, but returning to the objectivity and impartiality of Indian journalism, I think it's not different from what you face everywhere in the world. So you have to be very clever and always looking for good news, but and to be honest and sincere.
Exactly. I wanted also to hear.
Not easy to be free. It's not
of
easy.
course. Let's hear also Meenakshi if she wants. I would like to hear also her opinion on this.
I just wanted to add to what Rita said. Absolutely valid, of course. I think what I wanted to add is that for quite a while, I mean, journalists struggle for impartiality anywhere in the world, but much more insidious because India was one of those very, very rare places on the entire planet where even till last year, 2019, we actually had more newspapers growing, whereas everywhere in the world, newspapers have shut down, have struggling for advertising.
When you say newspaper, you mean print? I mean printed.
Print newspapers coming into existence. This is an incredible sign of the health of the Indian media, I feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because everywhere, I think a lot of the Western media that were mainly print are struggling to be viable online. Everyone knows that that's the way to go, but people are not really able to make money, advertising or subscription, etc. Everyone wants only free. Nobody really wants to pay for news, right? So India had one of those very few, and in many, many languages, print as well as new online papers, etc., including all of these are fairly recent. Scroll, Wire, Quint, First Post, they're fairly recent in the last few years. And they're, of course, growing alongside. But something much more dangerous that's been happening here, which I think is far more insidious and has gone to a much greater extent than was before, is that almost the majority of the country is deeply, passionately right-wing nationalist. Now, we never had that level of nationalism. There were always people with different viewpoints and different political ideologies. And that existed in many countries. There was somebody in government, somebody in opposition. But the trouble in India is we have virtually no opposition. It's just a name. It really has very little function because there's incredible centralization of power. And what that has meant is because it has exerted an inordinate power on the media, which again has been mainly monopolized. So either they're controlled by big corporates that are completely aligned with the government, or a lot of, I know this for a fact, I have a lot of friends who are really upright, like Rita was saying a moment ago, who are very courageous and daring. And they were sacked because their stories were compromising to the government, that revealed or exposed scams or corruption. They were actually sacked. And this has happened across the board. So the entire ownership or alignment of the media are nationalist and right-wing. So in this situation where there's almost no opposition at all, it's much more difficult, which is made worse by the fact that huge number of layoffs and newspapers shutting down now because of Corona, which is a worldwide thing.
So there is another question from Ravi, but I would go 1 second, please, in order to Laura Imone, who is asking again, Rita, what were the main challenges you had to face as an Italian movie to India, and what do you miss the most about India now that you can't be there? Briefly, and then we'll go back to the journalist, to the more technical question, but it was just a break.
Thank you for this question. Believe or not, when I arrived in Delhi, I felt home immediately.
How lovely is that?
Nice.
How lovely is that?
It was not my first time in India, of course. I had been visiting India many, many times before, sometimes as a tourist, sometimes for some reportage I had to prepare. And I asked to be appointed to India because I was in love with this country. So Delhi is a big city, a megalopoly, but you can on the other hand, have the feeling to live in a small village because, you find yourself living in a colony, which is a gated a place with a residential association, and after a few days you get in touch with the shop owner, with the boy delivering you newspapers early in the morning, with the man who comes to take your laundry and get it back in a few hours if you need. So you became a different woman living in this area. If you met people, you say hello. During festive day, they cheers you, and you say,
it's like a little village.
Sorry, yes, it is like this. And then you go for shopping in a nice place. You like the shop owner, and you come back, and he tells you, "Oh, how are you?" And so, this is not a joke. This is true. I think, of course, for me, India is still any day a place of interesting discoveries, of course.
How lovely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Let me say that the more intriguing thing is that the more I live there, and the less I understand a lot of things. So all my previous ideas or prejudices are falling down, and I am always surprised. But if we want to talk in a more sociological way, I can say that in a capital like Delhi, because you can find most of international realities like embassies or international cultural centers and something like this, you feel like you would feel being in Paris, in Rome, in Manhattan, or in London, if you want. You have many, many opportunities, and you can, of course, you have to deal with this problem. In India, you have to know there are castes, there are people living, huge amount of people, hundreds of thousands people living along the road without nothing. There are slums out of your door. So you don't get, I don't get accustomed to this, but I have to accept it. I have to know this is part of the reality of this incredible India. So this is an old slogan, but India is India. So
thank you, Rita. No, it's true. I mean, so I have been going to India since 20 years, and I totally agree with Rita. And it is the country of contradictions. And there are places, I don't go to Delhi that much. I go to Mumbai. I'm a Mumbai girl. And there are certain places of Mumbai where really you always go there, everyone, it's like a little village. There are pieces, and I'm sure that Meenakshi also lived, being a Mumbai girl now in this moment of her life. I don't know, Meenakshi, were you born and brought up in Mumbai? I can't know.
All my life. So I'm a mixed up all India person. So primarily I'm South Indian. So my mother's from Karnataka, south of Goa, and my father is from Andhra Pradesh, which is further south. And he spoke Telugu, and my mother spoke Konkani and Kannada. So they had to figure out languages. Yeah. And then by race, we are originally, we're a community called Saraswat Brahmins, and we are originally Kashmiris.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm very happy that we're all India. And somebody told me that a large strain of Kashmiris also came from Iran. So I'm absolutely delighted to have the more mixed blood, the happier I am. I think the idea of purity is appalling. So I'm just very happy to be highly impure. But I've lived in Bombay all my life. Sorry.
Selvaggia, if I can, I would like to add one thing.
Of course.
Yes. So in my experience, there is something which is really a nightmare in India, and this is bureaucracy. So
Yes.
I
Also in
arrived,
Italy. We can say that also in Italy.
but is really worst. So for example, I arrived with a journalist visa for 3 months, and I had to renew it. In order to get it renewed, they asked me, I don't remember how many kind of different documents. Then the first time they asked me printed. Then when I reached the office in order to give them everything, they told me, no, everything has changed. Now you have to make this online. The online website was not accessible, or it was falling down every 2 minutes. And then there is a sort of really different mentality. So they ask you this and this and this many and many times. And anytime you have a new different step. So this is really much more worse than our bureaucracy. But you can manage. If you need time, you need to be patient, but you get it. Yeah.
I think no country has a monopoly, I think, on it. It's just a worldwide big disease.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you really have to be patient. I have learned, I've been coming to India for 20 years, and I'm not a patient person, but I have learned I am not. In my DNA, there is no patience, but I have pushed inside the patience to cope sometimes with situations over there, because it's the only way. And I remember my first times in Mumbai many years ago, I would get stuck in the traffic and I would go mad, or I would queue, and there were these queues for everything, enormous. And then you say, or you go for your cell phone number and at the cell phone place, and it's just infinite. But then the bureaucracy also there, on the photocopies and the documents and the visas, it's just non-stop. But then that's how the country is, and it is the country of contradictions, and it is the country of constant discoveries also. After 20 years, every time I go there, I discover something new. I see Laura is saying that, Laura Imone is saying that she always felt at home in India. Yes, but never thought of moving there. Of course, it can be, there are many reasons for which one can decide to move or not to move in a country. It is certainly not an easy place to live, but which place is easy? It depends also where life brings you. There are many, Meenakshi.
I just wanted to add to something you said about impatience, because I'm also quite an impatient person. Yes. And I learned this in Delhi, some strange part of my life. I think I was there for 1.5 years, almost 2 years, a very long time back, more than 10 years back. And I think that one of the most infuriating things to me about Delhi is you can't just walk out and take a taxi, right? You have to know some area, taxi driver, yes. Shit. And like, how the heck does a whole capital city function without taxis on the road? But that's how it is. But so anyway, I don't know where.
Sorry, but I can say you can ask for one Ola or Uber driver.
Now.
Uber is something new, but not years ago.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. For a long time, so basically I was freelancing as a journalist in those years, working for many different fields, actually, which had very little to do with film. I was working with a lot of what are called development issues. So I was working a lot in gender issues, water issues, health, education in these, and doing a lot of work. So I remember it being so frustrating. Sometimes when I had a meeting that finished at peak hour and I could not get a taxi because I was on some main road. And then if it got dark, it was really horrible, because many times I would be on a really central road, like a ring road. And hundreds and hundreds of trucks that have blaring lights flashing in your eyes, beaming in your eyes. You're just standing, waving for like half an hour, and it is so frustrating. First of all, they're really creepy guys who will try and swerve near you to scare you, a woman on the road, this kind of behavior. But it would be so frustrating. It's exactly what you're saying, being really frustrated with the situation and not being able to help, right?
Exactly.
So I came up with this idea that I had to use that time productively in my head, that frustration is a mental space. Okay.
Interesting.
So I actually decided I was going to think of something positive, which is very hard when you're desperately waiting half an hour in the bloody heat, waiting for a bloody cab to stop. So I started learning new songs.
Oh, nice.
So I'm very greedy about languages, extremely greedy about languages. I love to learn. So when I can't learn a language, I love to learn songs in those languages. Like I know a lot of Bengali songs. I know a couple of Italian songs, something in Portuguese, some French songs, a bunch of German songs. So it's just in being in love with that language. And when I can't learn it properly or go to a class, the easiest thing is to learn a song. Now it is, of course, even easier. You could just look on YouTube. We didn't have YouTube in those days. But I think we had phones. So I would download the lyrics of the song at any given time of the day. I had songs on my phone. So anytime I had to wait endlessly, I would quickly learn new songs. So actually, Delhi taught me a lot of songs by being so creepy. So
well, lovely. This is a lovely story about
and actually, I also saw a rickshaw driver in Bombay, and I was so impressed. This is such a Bombay story. So I just got a rickshaw and I was sitting in the back and he was driving in the front. And every single time the traffic light turned red, he immediately took out something from under his seat and quickly started mumbling something. And the minute it turned green, he would put it back. And after a while, I said, what did you learn? I thought maybe he's trying to write a letter. I couldn't make out what he was doing. It turned out he was learning English. And I thought, wow. So he was doing the same thing I had thought of, that every time life stops and you're really frustrated, it's a mental space. Use it to do something good that you want to do. He was actually learning English from the traffic lights. I was so impressed. Just a very Bombay story.
Yeah. What a story. Story. Wow.
Yeah.
So Ravi is asking, can you please, let's see just 1 second. There are some this is a question, from Ravi. So there are some incredible Indian films, but stereotypes of Bollywood films in Italy. Is it only about romance dancing songs? How can this stereotype be broken? Oh, Meenakshi.
So I forget the title. There was this very charming film by this Bangladeshi who's Italian, Faim Bhuyan. You know the title? You remember it?
Parlava della madre.
Of the mother.
No, I know him.
No.
He was born in Bangladesh and he grew in Italy. Yes.
He's an Italian citizen.
Yes.
And he talks about falling in love and, his romantic.
Exactly.
It's really charming, quite charming. I'm feeling a little silly. I can't remember the name, but his name is Phaim Bhuyan. Very charming. And it's kind of reversing the stereotypes, but also I remember there was a filmmaker I met, I think at Film Bazaar in Goa, an Italian filmmaker. I'm not good with names. And he had this project for such a sophisticated idea. I was very impressed. So partly he actually saw, a news clip of, of course, as Rita was saying earlier, when we had chatted in a rehearsal about a lot of Sikhs in Italy making all the mozzarella and cheese, etc., right? The Punjabi community. So he saw a little news report of one of those heads of this Italian dairy farm, but completely run by Punjabi farmers, milk farmers.
I think it could be il vegetariano.
Exactly. Vegetariano.
I saw it, of course, il vegetariano. Yes.
I liked the idea so much. It was so sophisticated because it talked of this man who, at the end of his career, when the cows became too old to give milk, he was supposed to pick out the ones that would be sent for slaughter. And he said, I'm Hindu or Punjabi and I can't do that. It's against my religion. And the boss fired him. He said, I can't come from Rome. You have to take care of the whole thing. So he actually left. So then I think the story was fictionalized, had some drama about drugs and blah, blah, blah. But I think what he explained to me, what he wanted to say in the film, the philosophy, he was actually a philosophy professor who got into filmmaking. And what he wanted to say actually is that immigrants can actually be more sophisticated than the people living there, because he was talking of non-violence as a way of living life. And it was his integrity that was the problem. That even though he knew he would lose his job, he would still not kill a cow, right? So that somebody is thinking of the whole planet, is thinking of other beings, has a non-violent philosophy that he believes and is willing to pay the price. And the filmmaker said that that he saw the immigrants who are normally seen, like the Syrian wave or many refugees from many countries, seen as stealing jobs, etc., or stealing other things.
Yes, opportunities. Let's say,
yeah, actually turning this stereotype on its head and seeing them as more sophisticated. I found it really interesting.
Yeah. And another cute film that came out, Laura is remembering us. Yes, that's quite cute. This Bangla. It was a cute little film that was released last year by a young filmmaker and actor who originally from India, from Bangladesh, but born and brought up here in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. Rita, sorry, I interrupted you before but we were on this.
No. When Meenakshi was talking about her story about songs and no taxi, and she spoke about this auto driver. I was remembering one movie I have seen recently about auto rickshaw driver in I think he's in Delhi, and it's a very nice movie about him. He is a very good person who has a possibility of become a billionaire.
Is the movie Amal?
Yes.
We screened it, and the film of Rita Cenni came to Florence years ago. Yes,
Amal is for me is a wonderful portrait.
Lovely.
This kind of persons you were talking about. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little rickshaw story also many years ago, when still 2002, 3. So I hardly spoke. I mean, now I know, let's say, 20 words of Hindi. In those days, I knew 0. And so I was in Delhi. I was flying in from Mumbai, and I had to go. So from the Delhi airport, I was going to Delhi for 3 days. I had to go to a art exhibition or something. So I caught a rickshaw, and I don't know Delhi. And those times I didn't know Delhi that well. So I jumped on a rickshaw and I gave the address of this art gallery where I was going directly from the airport. So the rickshaw goes, it was kind of 6, 7, so it was already dark, and goes these long roads, highways, and I wasn't worried. I mean, it was very calm and relaxed. And then at a certain point, the rickshaw stops in a small road that is just off this kind of highway. And I say, now what do I do? And I wasn't able to interact in those days, not at all. I didn't have a cell phone. I was very old, very basic. So he stopped and he gets off the rickshaw. And I stay on the rickshaw, and I say to him, I said, do I run away? If I run away, where do I go? There's no place. I'll stay here and wait, think positive. And I did want to think positive, because after a few minutes that seemed very long, he came back with a woman and a kid. And they all came in the back of the rickshaw with me. We all pushed one next to the other. I don't know if it was probably his wife, I have no idea, and his kid or sister and whatever. And he said something to me, or maybe he didn't. And I said whatever. I mean, he didn't. I couldn't understand. But and then he drove me where I was going to go. So that's a cute little rickshaw Delhi story. That
I think it's sweet, because he probably wanted to show off to his family. I have a Gauri Memsa for a client, so please come and see her.
Or basically, he was just picking up his wife and kid from I don't know where, but so that's a nice rickshaw story.
Very cute.
From Delhi. So speak about rickshaws, and that film Rita is lovely. So you must know that Rita Cenni is a dear friend of the festival, and I know Ricci since many years. He's a filmmaker from he's of Indian origin, but he's from Canada, and he did I call them small Amal and big Amal, because he did a short film of Amal, of the feature that you saw, a short Amal, where the actor is Rupinder Nagra, and he lives in London, Rupinder, and then which was very cute, and we screened it at River to River, and then he said, I have done a longer version of Amal. And it's quite particular. Usually, if a short, first of all, it's quite particular to do a long film from a short film on the same subject. So, and I said, okay, let's see. And the long was absolutely lovely also. And this is sort of this rickshaw driver, and then and it's really nice. And we screened it here, and the director came, and it's a really was special film. So rickshaws are, I find them, I mean, they are characteristic, let's say, of India, absolutely.
Very,
and they are an entire life, and they are quite unique, I would say.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to what Ravi was talking about, stereotypes, etc. And a film like Amal or, Richie's work and a whole lot of independent films in India and diaspora have gone way beyond the stereotypes. So I think Bollywood mainstream is not a minority. It still is the drive of the industry. But I think the indie space has expanded far more. And my darling association with the River to River Festival was with my film, which I considered indie, but it was about a Bollywood superstar, Amitabh Bachchan.
Absolutely. When was it? When did you come? What year was it that you came?
I can't remember. I don't know. Very long time ago. Now we're 20, maybe 2015, 16, maybe 10 years back.
Yeah.
But just very briefly, so this had started at the Kala Ghoda Festival in Bombay. And Dave Benegal, who was curating the film part, he commissioned 5 people who have never made a film before to make a 5-minute film on Amitabh Bachchan. So the subject was given, this Bollywood superstar, and the duration was given, and you had to have no filmmaking experience. In those days, I was where we had met Selvaggia at the Times of India. I was a journalist and a film critic, but I was, of course, not a filmmaker. So I made the film only by interviewing blind people on what are their mental impressions of Amitabh. And these are people who, of course, have not only not seen Amitabh, they're blind from birth, they've not seen anything. So actually it became a love letter to Amitabh, evoking him through all the senses except vision, through smell, through hearing, through touch. And remember, I was so delighted to have a really warm reception at your festival. I was absolutely delighted to show it there. It was very lovely.
And we had also, it was lovely to screen it. And it was quite unique. I mean, the idea of, if you think about a superhero, a god, because Amitabh Bachchan is like a god, and then we were honored to have him as our special guest in 2012, and to ask people who have never actually seen him but only heard about him how they imagine. So what could be his perfume, his footsteps, his voice, his very deep voice. I remember very well. I remember it very well. Wow. I remember this whole film of Meenakshi, small in the sense of the length, very well. And because it was quite unique, very interesting, of asking how people who can't see perceive someone who is very, very well known, and that everyone, all the people around you have seen and see and know how that person is. So I thought it was very interesting, this take. Apart, of course, also the project was interesting, involving this organization of people who blind people, no? So it was absolutely lovely. Yes. So I was asking,
may I?
Rita, bye, Rita.
I would like to show you one picture. As we are talking about movies and cinema, so let me try to charge it. I have something I want to show you. Okay.
We are curious. You have to share the screen, open the picture.
No, I did something. Okay.
Let's see.
No, I make some mistake, so I cannot. Maybe if we have any technical help, let me see.
You're the only one who can do it, because it's on your laptop. So you need to open the picture on your laptop. And then you click share screen, and then you choose.
Step. Done it, but let me see. Share screen. Maybe I can do it. No, I canceled the option.
Okay, so we'll try
later.
What film was it, Rita?
No, it was not a movie. It was another picture. You would surely love if.
So why then you open the picture on your laptop, and then you go on share screen, and then you choose the option of your desktop. That's how it is. So in the meantime,
I have share screen, but I cannot share.
Well, you keep on trying. that so Ravi was
I
also
will keep on trying, don't worry.
so Ravi was asking, he's not aware of Italian movies screened in India. How? Yeah, well, what? Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, Meenakshi, but in India, in theaters, Indian films and Hollywood films get released. If you want to see another kind of movie, so let's call it European movies or from Iran or from other parts of the world, you need to go to a film club, see it on buy a DVD. Now this doesn't exist anymore, of buying a DVD, or find other ways to see it, go to a festival or have a private something. Correct me if I'm wrong. And how to improve it now, the situation at the moment is complicated. So we will see how to improve it, but I leave the word to Meenakshi.
Yeah, he asked about Italian films in India, but it's exactly what you said, other than Bollywood and Hollywood, and actually all the regional cinemas are strong in their own centers. For example, Tamil cinema is incredibly powerful in its own place in Tamil Nadu, whose capital is Chennai. And just for perspective, which is just one language, and India makes films in 43 different languages and dialects. 43. And the whole of the European Union makes films in barely 25 languages, which are the official European Union languages, right? Yeah, but in one single country, you have literally double the number of languages, film languages, I mean, spoken are zillions more. But so just the Tamil industry makes about 250 to 350 films a year, which is the same or more than what all of France makes in 1 year, with all its CNC funding and distribution, exhibition support, etc., etc. And this industry, of course, the majority of industries in India, film, are all private. I think the government support, the hindrance is much more than the actual support, more or less. I mean, there are a few key government institutions which are helping, but the majority of the industry doesn't really get the support it wants. Of course. But I don't think it's a question of only Italian. India is also the only country on the entire planet where Hollywood is small change. It's not even 10% of the market. Exactly. Okay? So everywhere in the world, people are trying to defend their national cinemas against Hollywood with protection, with taxation, with import duty, etc. Or they're banned. Like in China or Iran, you just cannot import freely. In Korea, they have a quota system, etc. So every country protects its cinema against Hollywood. In India, we say, hey guys, do whatever you like in my country, no problem. They've been here for 100 years and more, for over a century, with absolutely no controls. And after all their big budget marketing, top stars and George Clooney and Tom Cruise and everyone, they are still not even barely 10% of the Indian market. Exactly. So I think that's an extraordinary tribute to how much Indians love Indian cinema.
Absolutely. And
Bollywood is only one language. We make films in all these 43 languages, and a lot of them survive. So it's not only Bollywood. So not only Italians, everybody has trouble getting into India from outside.
Exactly.
Just love our own movies.
And there's also one thing, that Indian cinema is also seen a lot out of India. We can't forget about this.
Yes.
So Indian cinema in India, but Indians are all over the world, and also Africa, Egypt. Also there, the people watch Indian cinema. So it is the cinema that is mostly seen in the world. Now, while Rita is trying to upload her photo, Meenakshi had a prior commitment, so she will leave us in a few minutes. Just 1 second, Rita, please bear with us. So if I'm not mistaken, Meenakshi, you have another few minutes, so you want to say bye now?
I think so, because I have another online chat at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So maybe but let me finish. I want to see what Rita is saying, and then I'll leave.
Exactly. Then you can say bye. Okay. Yeah. Bye, Rita.
Yeah.
Can you see the picture?
Yes.
So, this is my summer dream. This is what have been happening in the major place of Bologna, Piazza Maggiore, for almost 15 years. Cinema sotto le stelle, movies under the...
We have screened a few of our films there.
Okay, it's lovely. As you can see, it's the biggest open cinema in the world, hosting 1,500 people, sitting and all the people all around. Yeah, it's always free, totally free.
Yeah.
We had the possibility to watch at many Indian movies in the last years, but of course, due to COVID this year, we are not yet sure we'll be able to have this. But this is one of the most beautiful place in the world where you can.
Gorgeous. I'm coming there, Rita. I'm coming there.
It is absolutely lovely, lovely. Thank you for the photo. Let's put us again on screen so we can say goodbye properly to Meenakshi. So,
yes, it was my homage to Meenakshi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us, Meenakshi. Rita and I will finish briefly this conversation. Thank you.
And, ciao. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, Meenakshi. Bye. So, Rita, that open air cinema is, we have screened our Indian films there a few times in collaboration with the Cineteca of Bologna, and it is an amazing place. Myself, I have been there to introduce the films to the audience, and I must say that I had emotion because the square is enormous and it's free entrance. And I remember, and it's of course in the summer, and people are just sitting there watching films. And I remember people sitting on the floor with the bicycles, just standing with the bicycle, watching a little bit of it. And it was really moving. And it's such a pity that this year probably it will not take place, but I hope it will get back because it is an amazing and unique place where to screen films. So thank you for showing us that photo because it really brings us lovely memories and lovely times.
Yes, and this is another kind of way of connecting countries through cinema, as
Exactly.
So
thank you, Rita. It's been lovely to have you here with Meenakshi that just left us. Thank you everyone for following us and for your questions.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was an honor and a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. So we will be back with our River to River Chai Times in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time, on the 18th of June. And follow us on our social media. We will give you out the correct time. Maybe we will go a little bit further on in the day, a little bit later. And we will tell you more about what will take place in 2 weeks. Probably it will be about henna, mehendi, the mehendi on hands. So we will have a mehendi expert. And we will talk about this beautiful art with her. And on the 18th of June. So thank you everyone for following us. Thank you, Rita, and have a lovely weekend. Goodbye.
Same to you.